Started here with the hearing. Before we get going, if anyone needs to use the restroom, it's actually through these doors here, my right and left. That side of the door there. Enter back to them as they return. Yeah, so we will get started here. Good afternoon, everybody. For the record, today is June 28th. It is exactly 4:02 p.m. We are here at the Douglas Visitor Center located at 345 16th Street, Douglas, Arizona. This is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed management goal for the Douglas Active Management Area. My name is John Riggins. I'm the statewide planning manager at the Arizona Department of Water Resources, and I will be the hearing officer for today's hearing. With me at the hearing is Michelle Spinelli, AMA Program Manager. Michelle soon provides background and an explanation of the proposed management goal. Also with me today.
Could you point out who is who?
Sure. Spinelli.
I'm sorry, this is Vicki, your court reporter. The audio is quite poor.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. We'll see if you can probably see that. Are you just having a problem hearing me?
It sounds like it's on that end. It sounds kind of like you're underwater, and I noticed another person commented on the audio being poor.
Great, thank you. You're not underwater, so we will try to troubleshoot that. All right. Check, check, check. I think we are back. Vicki, how is the sound coming through the audio now?
It's still not great, but it is a little better than it was. It's got a, that water sound to it. It's not great.
Okay. Well, I will try and speak up as long as you can hear what I'm saying. It looks like some of the feedback we're getting from the webinar is that the audio for other people who join is fine. So
Yeah, that's better.
okay. Then we will proceed. As I was stating, also with me today from the department are Karen Nielsen, Deputy Counsel, Natalie Mast, AMA Director, Mike Ortiz, AMA Establishment Coordinator, sitting in the back there, Brandon Bauman, Data Specialist, also sitting next to Mike, Public Information Officer Shauna Evans, and Sharon Scantleberry, our docket supervisor. We also have a court reporter, Vicki, who will be attending virtually to record and transcribe what is being said today. So it is important for speakers to please use the microphone, speak up, and speak slowly so that the court reporter can accurately record your comments. If anyone has difficulty hearing me or a speaker, please let me know. And we've already tested that out. For those in person, if you haven't already done so, please sign the sign-in sheet on the table near the entrance. There are also speaker cards on the table. If you'd like to speak today, please fill out a speaker card if you haven't done so already, and you can submit that card to Mike Ortiz in the back or to Sharon Scantleberry here at the front. For those on the webinar, we have provided a link to the virtual speaker card in the chat box and on the screen. The chat box can be opened by clicking the speech bubble icon at the bottom of the screen. If you would like to speak via webinar today, please use the virtual speaker card and staff will call on you when it is your turn to speak. Everyone was muted upon entry into the webinar today, so please unmute yourself when it is your turn to speak. For those participating via telephone and not on the webinar, and you would also like to make a verbal comment, please state and spell your name, and we will call on you when it is your turn to speak. If you would not like to make a comment, please simply stay silent. We will call on all telephone participants to speak after we call on the webinar participants. Persons presenting comments at the hearing, whether in person or virtually, will be subject to a 3-minute time limit to ensure all who wish to speak receive an opportunity to do so. The purpose of this hearing is to provide members of the public the opportunity to make a written or oral or written comments on the proposed management goal for the Douglas Active Management Area. We will not be responding to questions or comments at this hearing today. However, we will do so in writing as part of the formal management goal adoption process. If anyone has any questions or comments on issues or programs that are outside the scope of this hearing, you can contact me or one of our staff after the hearing. Today's hearing will be conducted in a formal manner. As I mentioned previously, a court reporter is recording everything being said. A copy of the transcript of the hearing will be available for review at the department's office and will also be posted on the department's website when it is available. This meeting is also being recorded via WebEx and will be available online within a few days. At the conclusion of this hearing, I will be accepting any written comments or documentary evidence that anyone may wish to submit to the department regarding the proposed management goal. The department will also accept written comments until midnight today. Written comments submitted up until midnight today should be submitted to the department's docket supervisor, Sharon Scantleberry, by email to docketsupervisor@azwater.gov or fax at 602-771-8686. A copy of the public notice with Sharon's contact information is posted on the department's website, and her business cards are located on the table near the entrance if you would like one. Within 30 days from today, the director will make and file in the department a written summary and findings with respect to the comments and evidence received at this hearing and prior to midnight today. If in the findings the director decides to adopt the management goal, the director will make and file with the department an order adopting the goal pursuant to the findings. Notice of the order will be sent to all persons who signed the attendance sheet today, and to all persons who submitted comments or evidence prior to the close of record. Please make sure you provide your physical or email address to receive a copy of the notice. The director will also publish the management goal, findings, and order of adoption once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in the Herald Review Media. Pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 45-571 and 45-114, subsection C, any person may file a request for rehearing or review of the order of adoption within 30 days after the second publication of the notice. The last day for filing requests for rehearing or review will be identified in the published notices of the order of adoption. If no one files a timely request for rehearing or review, the goal will become final. If a timely request for rehearing or review is filed, the director will have 60 days after receiving the request to issue a decision on the request. The director may grant a rehearing, grant a review without a rehearing, or deny the request. Any person may seek judicial review of the director's decision to adopt the management goal as provided in Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 45-114, subsection C. So now I will turn the hearing over to Michelle Cipanelli, who will describe the proposed goal in greater detail. Michelle.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for being here today, and thank you for allowing us to be here today as well. My name is Michelle Cipanelli, and I am the AMA Program Manager for the Arizona Department of Water Resources. The purpose of this presentation is to present information on the proposed management goal for the Douglas AMA. The legal structures for active management areas established under the 1980 Groundwater Management Act, which created ADWR, It imposed groundwater regulations in the initial irrigation non-expansion areas and active management areas. It authorized the establishment of new AMAs and INAs by either local initiation or by designation of the ADWR director, sorry. The initial AMAs were Prescott, Phoenix, Canal, and Tucson. The Santa Cruz AMA was split out from the Tucson AMA in 1995 and is still considered an initial AMA because it did not change the geographic footprint of those initial AMAs. The establishment of the Douglas AMA in December of last year was the first ever subsequent AMA and a part of the first expansion of regulated areas since the 1980s. On August 30th, 2022, in response to a petition that was filed by residents pursuant to ARS 45-415, the Board of Supervisors of Cochise County called for an election to be held on November 8th, 2022, on whether to designate the Douglas Groundwater Basin as a subsequent AMA. The AMA was designated on December 1st, 2022 with the certification of that election. This map shows the delineation of the Douglas AMA as well as the previous Douglas INA boundaries, all of which lie entirely within Cochise County. This slide shows the statutory framework for establishing a management goal and a subsequent AMA. The management goals and the initial AMAs were all established in statute. So this is the first time these statutes have been put into practice. In January, ADWR began a public process to collect public input and to propose a management goal. Today's hearing is a continuation of that process and is a portion of the formal legal process used to adopt the management goal. Written and verbal comments may be submitted during this hearing. Any additional written comments not presented during today's hearing must be submitted no later than midnight today to docketsupervisor@azwater.gov. We will present this email address again at the end of the presentation. Based on the results of the election, the Douglas AMA was designated on December 1st, 2022. ADWR held an information session on January 5th, 2023 to discuss the goal framework and initiate the informal public comment period. The initial draft of the Douglas AMA management goal was discussed during a public meeting on April 11th, 2023 at Douglas High School. From January to April, ADWR accepted informal comments and worked to revise the goal in response to those comments. On May 24, 2023, ADWR published a proposed management goal, which is the topic of the hearing today. On April 24th and 31st, a public notice was published in Herald Review Media and on ADWR's website announcing today's hearing and opening the formal comment period on this plan, which closes today again at midnight. ADWR will publish written findings from today's hearing within 30 days and may adopt the goal at that time. This slide shows the management goal language for the 5 initial AMAs. ADWR considered these existing goals and experience in analyzing these existing goals and laying out a framework and principles for the Douglas AMA management goal. ADWR presented a number of principles for the Douglas AMA management goal. The goal should move the AMA towards long-term water sustainability by setting certain water resource management criteria to decrease outflows from and decrease inflows to the aquifer. The goal should be measured or The goal should be measured or contain some kind of evaluation criteria. There must be a timeline in which to achieve the goal. The goal must be achievable and appropriate for the Douglas AMA. Finally, the goal must be legal, reasonable, and defensible. Based on the goals for the other AMAs, ADWR laid out a framework for the Douglas AMA management goal. This framework includes the goal itself, the desired outcome, which is generally broad and long-term, the objective, which is the specific and measurable action that must be achieved to reach the goal, and a timeline, the time by which the goal should be achieved. Please note that specific strategies to achieve the objective may change over time and aren't typically included in the goal statement.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there a way to stop that shaking?
Unfortunately, it's the air conditioning in here.
The way they could turn it off.
Hold on.
They said it would stop once the air conditioning turns off.
Oh, no, we don't want to die in here.
Okay, I'm going to continue. Within all of these things in mind, the director has provided the following as the proposed management goal. The management goal of the Douglas AMA is to support the general economy and welfare of water users in the basin by attempting to reduce the rate of aquifer depletion by 2035 and every 10 years thereafter. To further explain the proposed goal, we'll now go through the specific language in the goal and how it fits into the template. The portion that fits the goal components is to support the general economy and welfare of water users in the basin. The first portion of this phrase echoes language used in the Declaration of Policy for the Groundwater Code, which describes the importance to the state of managing groundwater supplies. This phrase also refers generally to water users to be inclusive of those who rely on AMA water supplies. The next portion of the goal is the measurable objective. Reduce the rate of aquifer depletion, which includes we included attempting here to mirror the language used to define safe yield for several of the initial AMAs. The last portion of the goal is a timeline. By 2035 and every 10 years thereafter. This language both establishes an initial timeline in which to achieve some progress towards the goal and establishes a cycle for ongoing evaluation of the rate of the aquifer depletion in the AMA. This would allow for future management plans to be responsive to changes in aquifer conditions in the AMA. Bringing each of these components back together, the proposed goal for the Douglas AMA is to support the general economy and welfare of water users in the basin by attempting to reduce the rate of aquifer depletion by 2035 and every 10 years thereafter. Thank you for your time and attention. With that, I will hand it back over to John, who will be calling up speakers.
Right, thank you, Chelsea. So that brings us to for those participating via telephone through the webinar, we'd like to make a verbal comment. Please state and spell your name now. We will call on you when it is your turn to speak against the telephone participants. If you would not like to make a comment, please simply stay silent. We will call on telephone participants after the webinar. Do we have anybody participating on the team? We do not. I will call for telephone participants again later. So that brings us to the in-person speaker cards, and I see we do have a few. So please be advised, those presenting comments at the hearing, whether in person or virtually, will be subject to a 3-minute time limit to ensure all who wish to speak receive an opportunity to do so. I will now, or Natalie will begin calling the names of the persons who filled out speaker cards here in person. If you wish to speak and you have not filled out a speaker card, they are available at the back table with Teresa, and you can pick one up and submit one to Teresa or to any of the ADWR staff here in the room. When we call your name, please come up to the podium in the front and state and spell your name for the record, identify any person or entity that you represent, and then give your comments. So Natalie, we can collect the name again. Just a reminder, it is a 3-minute time limit, and we will start as soon as you begin speaking.
Right, the first person who turned in a comment card is Christian Sawyer.
So did you say the time limit on swimming?
3 minutes.
Audio is good? No?
We may have to, because we're actually checking audio through here, can the online participants,
I not use the microphone?
I would use the microphone, sir. If you don't mind, just
Check 1, 2, 3.
online, can everybody, Vicky, Purple, can you read that?
I think I can hear it.
Okay, good, sorry.
Your proposed goal is the only potential AMA goal with the reference our groundwater code's declaration of intent, which states that the interest of the code is protecting and stabilizing the general economy and welfare of state and citizens. But it would also distort or undermine that declaration with the language. Instead of protecting and stabilizing, your goal is to support. Instead of identifying our geography and its citizens, your goal is in service of water users in the basin. Ambiguously inclusive language, also dangerous. The proposed goal would also regress from policy precedent by using the word intent rather than achieve or any kind of serious language. Director Shkosky recently defended the inclusion of this word with an irrational and legally indefensible argument at the recent Water Policy Council meeting. Your proposed goal aspires at most to reduce the rate of aquifer depletion, leaving the door open for a planned depletion management plan, which will lead our community toward urbanization and slow death of agriculture, as has happened with Pinal AMA's planned depletion goal.
Mr. Sawyer, I apologize. We're going to need to move that podium closer there. Our time here.
Okay, Norma?
We'll start your time over for you.
I apologize.
Maybe Natalie,
Yeah.
maybe even this hour will be fine. Okay. Kind of like the opposite side, you can put it.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. I apologize.
Kind of make sure you ended up.
No, you're fine.
Vicky, online, you heard the last four of the comments.
The audio is quite difficult.
Okay, would you like Mr. Sawyer to start?
Why don't you go ahead and start?
Well, sorry, I want to show the records, but,
Can you see on there with good enough, should we confirm that?
I was going.
I'm sorry?
Is the audio better?
Okay.
I didn't catch what you said. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the mic is not by you, so she can't hear you. So Mr. Sawyer needs to come a little closer.
Okay, well,
If we could legally move the podium kind of in the
Yes,
back.
take the mic off. Take the mic off so you can stand.
Sorry about that.
I also cannot identify who is speaking. There's just a lot of voices and I don't know who is speaking and the audio is terrible.
This will be for the webinar.
Vicky, can you hear me now?
I can hear that.
okay, so Vicky, this is John Reagan's, or the hearing officer, Mr. Sawyer, Christian Sawyer is going to begin his comments over. We will continue with in-person comments.
All right, take two. Christian Sawyer speaking. Your proposed goal is the only potential AMA goal, which would reference our groundwater code's declaration of intent, which states that the interest of the code is, quote, protecting and stabilizing the general economy and welfare of the state and its citizens. But your proposed goal would also distort and undermine that declaration by using weaker language. Instead of protecting and stabilizing, your goal is to, quote, support. Instead of identifying our geography and its citizens, your goal is in service of water users in the basin, which, as you mentioned, is inclusive, but it should not be, it's ambiguous. The proposed goal would also regress from policy precedent by using the word attempt rather than achieve or any kind of serious language, i.e. measurable and meaningful. Director Bishkovsky recently defended the inclusion of this word with an irrational and legally indefensible argument at the recent Water Policy Council meeting. Your goal aspires at most to reduce the rate of aquifer depletion, leaving the door open for a planned depletion and management plan, which will lead our community toward urbanization and the slow death of agriculture, as has happened with the Pinal Land-based planned depletion goal. You've set the bar as low as you felt you might get away with, lower than any other AMA, and you've done so when rural communities like ours are most in need of good help, such as from our public servants at the agency whose mission is protecting and enhancing Arizona's water supplies for current and future generations. There's nothing in the ADWR's mission statement about supporting or attempting or unidentified water users. You're hoping that an AMA goal which undermines the law will be your shield from any accountability. You've made the mistake of believing that the Douglas AMA goal is the ADWR's goal, when it is in fact the basin's goal, and your job is to help us achieve our goal. The goal that I propose to you and to my neighbors here is the management goal of the Douglas AMA is to protect and stabilize the general economy and welfare of the basin and its residents by eliminating the long-term declines of local water tables by 2050 and thereafter. I have extensive and grounded arguments for every word in this amended proposal, appealing to our statutes, policy precedent, previous public comments made by both residents, politicians, and your administration. My arguments have been reviewed and affirmed by previous AMA directors, policy experts, local residents like myself, McVeigh professors, lawyers, and attorneys. Between the strength of the arguments and the statutory violations you've made in the management goal process, I'm confident that will secure a recall if you adopt the proposed goal, and we challenge you with judicial review. Do not underestimate the importance and the power of the residents in the basin, and don't underdeliver in your efforts to create a transparent and cooperative working relationship with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I request that that written statement be left with the chairperson?
It will be emailed.
Thank you.
Next comment card is Alice Hammers.
Vicky, how was the audio? This is, hearing officer, how was the audio for that last?
Yeah, they make this for short people. That doesn't count my 3 minutes. My name's Alice Hammers. I live in McNeil. I'd like to say that first. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Not that short. Wait a second, I'm shrinking, but, hey. So I'm saying a goal is not attempted, a goal is set. You don't say, my goal is to attempt to paint the bathroom. My goal is to paint the bathroom. You may not succeed exactly as planned, but your goal is set. You're gonna paint the bathroom. Now we need to set the goal for the AMA. Following the Santa Cruz AMA goal, quote, preventing long-term declines of local water tables, thus helping stabilize groundwater, would be wholly appropriate and economically sound goal for the Douglas Basin. Or better yet, simply set the goal as preventing the decline of local water tables. Also essential is to stop the unsustainable withdrawal of groundwater by the endless proliferation of nut orchards and the huge industrial agricultural interests that have moved into both Douglas and Wilcox Basin because there was no regulation on groundwater withdrawal. An aside, how did the state revoke the well drilling permits for the Saudi alfalfa growers? Just an aside. The ADWR needs to work with, not encumber with paperwork and out of the park fees, the small to medium sized agriculture and commercial ventures that add significantly now to the economic and general well-being of our communities. ADWR's overall goal is to promote economically viable communities through safeguarding the scarce water resources in a desert climate. Without water, above ground or subterranean, there is no economy at all, period. Therefore, it is the responsibility of ADWR to preserve and encourage commercial and agricultural endeavors that do not threaten the utter depletion of the groundwater of the Douglas Basin or Wilcox Basin or anywhere else in Arizona, and also to protect residential wells from going dry, and to focus on 2 goals. 1, preventing overall groundwater decline, and 2, specifically ensuring that giant corporate agriculture, nut orchards, and any other large commercial venture, e.g. housing developments, are strictly limited in the amount of groundwater pumping allowed. If these large-scale enterprises cannot exist without the unsustainable use of groundwater, then they simply do not belong in the Sulphur Springs Valley. I'd also like to, okay. So don't be careful what you ask for, because you oppose the INI. Look at the difference between the Douglas Basin.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next comment card is for Allegra Davidson.
I'm Allegra Davidson, and I did not prepare a comment, but I would like to make a comment. 2 things. One is it sounds like your goals are very far into the future, and I think that you should consider what is actually happening in the aquifer at the moment and the actual time that's going to take to stabilize that. My other comment is just that you talked about preserving the economy of the area. I think that you should consider only preserving the economy of the residents of the area, not the economy of the, imported companies that have moved in and are not residents at all. I think that we should be concerned about what's happening locally to us and to all the residents, whether you're farming or whether you're just residing in that area. And I think that this can be done by setting, moderately high limits on the amount of water extraction per person, per farm, or per corporation. I would suggest something like 10 acre-feet a year. I don't know if that's reasonable or not, but there are individuals that are pumping enormous amounts of water. And it's unfair to the residents that have been living here for years. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next comment card is Elaine Bailey.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody that's sitting at the table for being here today and listening to all of us, because we greatly appreciate it. This is our home, we live here, we love it, and we want to stay here. And so, as you can tell, many of us, most of us, all of us feel very, very passionate about our homes. There's some things I'm confused about. As of August 30th, things were put into place depending on the actual vote, where we all got to go and voice our opinion and vote. And at that time, it was said that things will be restricted, things will continue, or they'll be null and void. Well, it passed. We voted and it passed. And so I'm very concerned because it said land was not to be cleared. Well, if you look out my front window, there's land being cleared right and left. There's millions of trees, grapes that have been planted. Let me emphasize millions, all right? And everything is being irrigated, everything. I've already run out of water once, okay? We had to go deeper. If I cannot go deeper, the next thing I have to do is put in a new well, and that doesn't make me real happy, to the tune of $40,000 to $50,000. I'm happy if the water goes to our local ranchers and our local farmers, but that's not the case when people are putting in millions of trees. They don't live here, they have nothing to do with being here. I don't understand how it's legal, because the way everything was written up, this is not legal and there is no follow through. All I hear every day on the news is, oh God, we have problems in Arizona. We do. And I don't understand. If we're having such problems in our state, then why are these people and corporations being allowed to grow and come in the first place? Why do we have pivots that are running 24/7 when during the heat of the day, 60% of that water is being evaporated? We're all intelligent people. We have to know that what's going on here is wrong. And it doesn't take a brain scientist to realize this. Help our community. This is our home. I don't know who lives here at the table or in the first row, to be honest with you, but I live here. And I know that I'm speaking for many, many people. Thank you.
Next comment card is Jackie Watkins.
I'm Jackie Watkins. I'm a local farmer. My family's been farming here for over 150 years, farming and ranching. My husband and I have a farm and we raise cows, sheep, and irrigate alfalfa and pecans. The pecan tree is one of the only native nut trees to North America. The Groundwater Code that started in 1945 was the first attempt in Arizona to regulate the use of groundwater. In 1965, the Douglas Basin was declared a critical groundwater area and limited the drilling of new irrigation wells. Then in 1980, it was declared the Douglas Irrigation Non-Expansion Area. This limited the irrigation to those acres that were irrigated in the preceding 5 years. With all of this, our groundwater is still depleting. We need to do something. The INA only controlled the use of irrigation water, not industrial or other agriculture use. With the AMA, it will control and help the groundwater depletion by all users of the basin. I support the groundwater basin, or the AMA support. And one way to increase the groundwater level and increase the aquifer is through recharge. One of the agencies that can help us do that is the Whitewater Natural Resource Conservation District, which is part of the State Land Department's agencies that we have. And they can get funds from the USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Services, that can help get projects for the area. So we need to try to find solutions to increase the aquifer groundwater and not deplete it. Thank you.
Next comment card is Ron Venus.
Thank you. Ron Venus, Ron J. I'd just like to take a brief moment. Our family's been farming and ranching here for approximately 115 years in the middle of the valley. And I just say that to punctuate, farming has been going on here for a very long time, and it has been increasing in water efficiency and technology through the decades. We need to continue that. And with that said, my comment about your proposed management goal is does not include the word agriculture in it anywhere. And that is critically important when it comes to funding from federal, state, and nonprofit agencies to implement conservation issues. And I would very much like to see that word included in your statement. Thank you very much.
The next comment card is Stella Brown.
I can pass. Everything has already been said.
Thank you. And next, I have a comment card from Chris from McNeil.
I found a flyer at the Walmart parking lot. They're scattered all over, and they say the Arizona Department of Water Resources all over them. Did you guys put these all over? I'm told this is littering when you leave these all over. These were all over the parking lot. So somebody's imposing as you people. I've been told the golf courses, the mines, and the dairy are all in the same category. Is that correct? Are they industrial and exempt?
So we are not responding to any comments or questions.
Okay, well,
But we're.
okay. For those people who need to wake up and see what's going on that don't know, I believe dairies and mines and golf courses are under industrial and they're exempt. And then the boundaries, how you've expanded them from the INA to the AMA, I believe I read those people will be charged $1,000 that weren't in the INA. And I don't know why you're doing that to them, what they did wrong. I guess that's about it.
Thank you, and thank you for providing this flyer. I now think this is something the department would post for the event in the parking lot.
Next comment card is Fred Davis.
Hi, I'm a fourth generation rancher here in Cochise County. I guess this is kind of a moot point since you're not answering any questions, but
I have quite a few questions on the people who were included and who weren't included on the vote on this AMA. The city of Bisbee was included. They received no water from the Douglas Basin. It all comes from Naco, which was grandfathered in. It's coming from the San Pedro Basin. I was also told that Rucker Canyon people were not included in the vote. I don't think it was very clear to begin with that the boundaries exceeded the INA. There were a lot of people who weren't aware it was going to include their property that was excluded from the INA. Thank you.
Thank you. And just also, I appreciate your comments, sir. And though we're not responding to questions and comments here today, we will respond to any questions or comments from this hearing today as part of the report.
Next comment card is Chris Mays.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Chris Mays, and I am Arizona's Attorney General. As someone who grew up on a tree farm in Prescott, Arizona, I know how important rural Arizona is to our state. And I also know how often it feels like rural Arizona is ignored, taken for granted, and doesn't always have a seat at the table. I am joining you tonight because I care deeply about this issue and I care about your concerns. Many of you probably have land that has been in your family for generations. Many of you want assurance that there will be water for generations to come. What we all understand at its core is that if we don't have water, we can't survive. Because much of rural Arizona isn't covered by the Groundwater Management Act of 1980, our state has become ripe for mega farms, hedge funds looking to mine and sell our water, and high water intensity crop growers who have either depleted their own aquifers in their own country or simply taking advantage of our lax water laws where they can. These entities have money to drill deeper and deeper wells, some a half a mile deep, while small farmers, ranchers, and residents are left with dewatered wells and land subsidence. This isn't sustainable for anyone. As you know, Cochise County is not alone. In La Paz County, as someone recently mentioned, residents are feeling the deeply negative impacts of the decision by the state of Arizona to allow Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates owned corporations to farm alfalfa, drilling numerous deep water wells that have dewatered the wells of nearby residents and ranchers, causing land subsidence, also that the Saudis can send that alfalfa back to Saudi Arabia for their cows. None of this makes sense. But it is the result of years of neglect by the political leadership of our state. And that must come to an end. The very fact that the voters here took matters into their own hands to create an AMA is a sign of the failure of the state to help local communities manage their groundwater supplies. The objective of ADWR should be to ensure that the young people of our counties, Cochise County, La Paz County, Yavapai County, will be able to stay in Cochise County for their lives and for the lifetimes of their children, if that is what they desire. I know that there are many opinions to be shared tonight. We have heard some of them already about the proposed AMA goal. But here is my initial reaction, especially as a former Arizona Corporation Commissioner, about this proposed goal. As an Arizona Corporation Commissioner, we passed the Renewable Energy Standard, which had stringent requirements within. I know you're going to cut me off here in a second. Here Okay, all right. Here's what I would say about this goal. This goal lacks specificity, teeth, benchmarks, and accountability. The use of the word, quote, attempt is less than ambitious. I have far more to say, and I will submit those comments for the record. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Right, the next comment card is Young Mayberry.
As indicated, my name is Young Mayberry. I come from St. David, Arizona. Incidentally, my forebears were the first Anglos in the San Pedro Valley who arrived on November 29th of 1877, predating Tombstone, predating Bisbee, predating Fort Huachuca, actually concurrent with Fort Huachuca. But we've been here a long time. I'm a farmer, a 28-year Air Force officer retiree, and I returned to my home. I recognize that where I live is not in the Douglas active management area. But I also recognize that so as goes this AMA, so goes the rest of Cochise County, which I am a very active participant in. What I see here is perhaps a loyal attempt. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt there, and I don't mean any disrespect for the Arizona Department of Water Resources. But what I see missing is local people being involved in the establishment of the goal. It seems to me that somehow by voting in this AMA, that we, I consider ourselves we in this sense, because I am us in this context, I have a vested interest in this. It seems to me that we're turning over our responsibility for establishing a goal to people in Phoenix who are not farmers, not ranchers, and not Cochise County residents. To make a goal real for us, we in Cochise County, especially in this Douglas AMA, need to be involved in the goal process. If we are not involved in the goal process, then it becomes a them against us, and we need to quit the them against us and have it be us. Most emphasis on us. That way we can come up with a way that we, the local people who understand our interests and our needs, are the ones who are making the goals and the actions for those goals to be met. So that's what I'm seeing in this back and forth. You know, the issues of attempting and so on and so forth, whatever. We need to involve us in that process, not them making a goal for us so that we can combat that. We make the goals. We make the actions. We control our water. We're doing that with the St. David Irrigation District in St. David. We've had a goal. I mean, we've had that a district of sorts since 1880. We regulate our water, and boy, can we fight over it. Okay, as it's been said, whiskey is for drinking, and water is to be fought over, and we do a good job about that. But we do have our water resources, and we manage it. Thanks.
Next comment card is Michael Gregory. Yeah.
My name is Michael Gregory. I'm a resident of McNeil for the past 50 years. I have a small orchard, a couple of those small greenhouses, non-commercial. I was very much in favor of the AMA. I helped proselytize people so they would vote for it. I am very disappointed in the goal, as I have told you before, at the informal meetings, in several editorials in various newspapers around the state, and in personal letters to the department. You've heard most of my comments already given by other people today, so I'm not going to go over those now. I just would like to note that what I have said in the past, I would like included in today's record by reference, what I have said in informal meetings to you in the past, which is basically that the goal you have proposed does nothing to protect our water. It allows so many loopholes, so many slippery ways out, and does not at all put any pressure on the people who are using most of our groundwater, as people have noted, to export out of state in the way of profits from their cattle and their other crops. And that is something that we need to end. We need to protect the groundwater. As people have said, we should stop the groundwater decline, not attempt to do it, but to do it. Thank you.
Next comment card is Jerry Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Gonzalez and I farm in the Double Adobe area. I have pecan, peas, and irrigated pasture. But beyond that, there's been a lot of things said here today, and I agree with most of them, and I support all that. But what you're up against is 100 years of people in small farms and ranches working hard to conserve water, to become water was. Water is our bloodline, and that's how we make a living here. It's small farms, and it's not right to allow mega farms to come in and take all the water that it took us 100 years to save. We should show on your plans, I would like to see a real objective. Get rid of mega farms in Cochise County. We were all right without that. This is a small farm, cattle country area. And that's the basis for our economy. And that brings the most benefit to most people here in Cochise County. So we can talk and use a lot of beautiful words about plans and strategies and all that. But until you can show me what you're gonna do to limit those people coming in and stealing our water that we said we worked 100 years to save, I'm not excited. I'm not buying it. Thank you.
Next comment card is for Lupe Diaz.
Hello. My name is Lupe Diaz. I'm state representative, LD 19. We represent Cochise County, Graham, Greenlee, Santa Cruz, and part of Pima County. As we look at the water issue here in this area, I've been able to talk to a lot of different people in both Wilcox and some in the Douglas area as well on their usage. And there's a lot of different concerns about how the small ranchers and farmers are going to be able to sustain their livable incomes and their farms and their income. And so one of the questions that I had at the last hearing was, is ADWR and establishing the AMA and its goals considering the Mexico? Because the water basin not only cuts itself off at the border, the water basin also runs into Mexico. And so as Mexico uses the water, it's also lowering the water table. And I asked if there was any way that we can not penalize the citizens in the United States, but somehow be able to determine or even come up with a average or some kind of a number that says, okay, there's this much activity going on across the border. We can kind of estimate what's happening across the border, and then we can take that into consideration. Because what I think is going to happen is that we're going to try to limit ourselves like we often do in the United States. And then we turn around and penalize our own people rather than the national agreements that we might have with some of the foreign actors. The other thing that we have is that we want to be objective. We went ahead and last year we went ahead and legislature is not sitting on their laurels, not doing anything. I want to tell you right now that we're all considering this water shortage and the drought situation in this state. You know, some other people and some other folks feel like we're not doing anything and that it's legislature's fault. And it is not. We put $1 billion into mitigation for the state of Arizona last session. And there's $200 million for creative, for refundable loans and also grants for ranchers, farmers, small home users for being able to harvest water, learn how to do, just how to do the landscaping so that you can capture the water. We've been looking at doing some recharge in different areas. I know that the Wilcox Water Basin is different than this one, but I know that we have been in contact with the county on recharge. Thank you very much. We're very active.
Next comment card is Gail Griffin.
Good evening. Thank you for being here and taking comments. A lot of comments have been made. I'm going to hand in some comment cards that others had given me to turn in. And what I'm hearing is that the customs and cultures of the area need to be taken into consideration. And the custom and cultures in this particular area and basin has been in agriculture, farms and ranches primarily. Continued use and a goal similar to Pinal County as long as is viable. But users in the basin, as has been mentioned, Bisbee does not get their water from the basin. They get it from the San Pedro. It is a binational border and that's been commented on. And so there's, I'm going to give you copies of what the legislature has done with $360 million this year to address water security, and as well as a resolution that spells out some of the things that the state of Arizona has been doing over the years from the 40s and earlier, and what needs to be done in addition. And we are addressing recharge issues. We're putting money where our mouth is, and that money is available for cities, counties, communities, and recharge. 95% of the rains we get evaporates before it gets into the ground. So there are other things that can be done. So I'm going to turn in information about and some statistics about groundwater withdrawals. And the withdrawals back in 1974 are higher than it is today. So I'll be handing these in for you, and I'll be happy to stick around and talk to anybody that would like to discuss the issue. Thank you.
One last one, Ash Dalkey. I came in a little late. How many minutes do I have? Perfect. Okay, so we'll see how much I get through. So I'm a Douglas Groundwater Basin resident, and the proposed management goal by ADWR for the basin is inadequate in addressing the current groundwater situation in the valley. I urge ADWR to strengthen the goal into something that is in line with other AMAs, something that is measurable, unambiguous, and that is in line with ADWR's mission. The word attempt in the current goal completely undermines the purpose of active management, makes the goal unable to be measured, and should be removed from the goal altogether. During ADWR's first Douglas AMA meeting in January, ADWR stated that the goal, in fact, needed to be measurable. The proposed goal does not include any metric to make it measurable, and none of the management goals for existing AMAs contain language as the word attempt. ADWR on their website also has documented subsidence and groundwater depletion in Douglas Aquifer, and it is clear from public presentations and the reports found on the website. The residents of the basin deserve a management goal that is concrete and in line with the initial AMAs across the state of Arizona. At minimum, ADWR should be doing this. All management plans will fall under any management goal. Therefore, any goal proposed by ADWR should be written to best support this. According to ARS 45-141, our waters belong to the public at large, and we need an AMA goal that works for local residents. The goal should follow the law with a strong assertion that it is the public whose right to a stable water supply is protected over the special out-of-state interest extracting free groundwater for their own profit. The public at large voted this AMA into place after 40 years of inaction from ADWR, and we have the right to have our groundwater protected. The goal should achieve and maintain stabilized local water tables within 25 years and remain at those levels in the following decades. As stated above, the goal will ultimately influence management plans, and therefore the goal should be in line with ADWR's mission, which states that they are protecting and enhancing Arizona's water supplies for current and future generations. Currently, the proposed goal will not do much of anything to protect and enhance the Douglas groundwater basin, but will continue the depletion of the aquifer, which will in turn endanger the welfare and economy of the Douglas groundwater basin and its residents. Thank you.
One second, we can get our. Is there anyone else in person who would like to submit a speaker card? Last call, I do not see any hands. Well, thank you, everybody, for providing comment. Let the record reflect that no one else in person wishes to speak. Do we have any virtual speaker cards?
No, we do not.
Last call for any virtual speaker cards for webinar participants. Let the record reflect that no one else or no one on the webinar wishes to speak. Do we have any telephone participants? None. So that will move us to the public comment portion. Is there anyone else here who would wish to submit any written comments or evidence that they brought with them? If you don't wish to read it into the record, you can please provide any comments to Sharon Canterbury if you do not wish to read them into the record. If you do wish to read them into the record, you can step up to the podium, state your name, identify any person or entity that you represent, and then get your comments.
How do we get written comments into your record?
So written comments, and I'll touch on them here in this next part. Yes, there's the comment period there. As I mentioned earlier, written comments on the proposed management goal may be submitted until midnight tonight. If you'd like to submit written comments after the close of the hearing, please fax or email them to Sharon Scantleberry, the department's docket supervisor. Her fax number is 602-771-8686. And her email address is docketsupervisor@azwater.gov, and her business cards are available at the table. And the current information for those participating on the webinar is being shown on the screen currently. I appreciate everybody's patience and flexibility with our audio and screen issues throughout this hearing. I appreciate all the comments that everybody made. Thank you for attending those in person and online. So with that, this public hearing is now adjourned. Thank you all again for attending and providing comment. Thank you.